Can you be gay and a Christian?
I was at a Christian wedding. It was towards the end of the night where I decided to take a walk, and I went to where the ceremony was held. And looking around, and all the chairs are empty. The family that I would love to be there isn't there. The friends that I would love to be there isn't there. The man wasn't there. The ring that I desperately wanted wasn't there. And I remember just crying out, what the heck? Like, what is this all for? Like, why? Well, why do I have to be gay?
Well, what's up? Welcome to Uncomplicated Podcast.
What's up? Good to be here.
This is Paolo Errico, which I say with the most borderline offensive Italian accent I've ever tried in my life.
You're doing great. I appreciate it.
Huge Italian family.
Yeah,
so
huge.
Trying to, I don't know. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about a much, I think, needed conversation, a conversation you're used to having. But the big question is, can you be gay and a Christian?
Yeah.
So we'd love to hear your story. I mean, can I talk about how we met though, real quick?
Go for it. Yeah, would love that.
So we have a mutual friend,
who
pastors a church not too far from my church, and I was speaking there on a Sunday because instead of him speaking, I was going to speak. And at the end of my message, something unique happened. This church pastor who was there invited you up.
Yeah.
And he with tears in his eyes, he said, "Today we're saying goodbye to a beloved member and leader in our community here of faith." And there was this powerful moment because you were moving to San Diego.
Yeah.
And he felt it necessary to acknowledge that something of their spiritual family was going to be missing now.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, what a beautiful moment. And in that moment, you shared your journey and testimony, and I was like, oh my gosh, like how powerfully you articulated that so well, so much grace. And so then I for a week, I was like, should I call this guy? Is that weird? Is that weird to just hey, I'm the guest speaker. You want to have coffee? Well, I'm so glad I did because we had a wonderful conversation and a great friendship has started, and you've been just been terrific, you know? So, I mean, I don't know. The more I talk, Paolo, the less you get to talk. So take it away. Would you please be comfortable sharing your story?
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah. So my name is Paolo Errico. A little bit of backstory. Both my parents are from Italy.
There we go.
Born and raised in Italy, and then came to the U.S. in the late 70s.
So is Italian your first language?
Yeah.
Wow.
Italian was my first language. English was second. But I always joke, my parents wanted to show off how Italian they were by having 7 kids.
There we go.
Yeah. So I'm one of 7 kids. I'm the very last. 5 boys, 1 girl. 6 boys, 1 girl. And then they wanted to show how Catholic we were, and they gave us all Italian Catholic names. And we're all named after saints. And
there we go.
Yeah, so pretty funny. But yeah, my parents both immigrated here to the U.S. from Italy, and just tried to live as simple as possible, being immigrants. And so I'm the very last of all the kids. I'm lucky number 7.
The baby of the family.
The baby, yeah. They tried really hard to get me, so I like to remind my siblings of that. But growing up, there's this thing called the Italian machismo. So machismo just means a person who is highly masculine and typically is the head of the house, really strong and mighty man.
Oh, I married into a Hispanic family.
So you kind of get it. Bro. Yeah. Which is funny. I'm recognizing how odd that is because a lot of the Italian culture is also very comfortable with femininity.
Sure.
And if you look at historically, a lot of the Italian architects and fashion designers are gay. Yeah. And so it's this weird thing of accepting gayness for beauty and then also just retracting their acceptance.
Yeah.
So it was really weird, and it was really weird for me because I knew from a really young age that I was gay. Though I probably wouldn't use that term gay. I knew maybe about 5 or 6 that I was attracted to other boys in school or brothers' friends, and that really started to show a difference in the rest of my siblings and the rest of the boys at school. And yeah, I wasn't like that. I wasn't like my siblings. Or
I imagine 5 older brothers.
Yeah. all loved women, had posters of girls on the walls, wore flannel. So they did all the traditional male things. And here I am, I played soccer, but there's actually a picture of me playing soccer at 4, and I was picking up flowers and chasing butterflies. And so you
probably not celebrated in your house too much.
Not celebrated too much. No, not for my kicks at least. But yeah, I grew up knowing how different I was and hearing what people said about being gay within my family was really hard and challenging, and led me to a lot of fear and a lot of shame. And so I knew from an early age that I needed to hide that. And so I went into hiding most of my life until like my early to mid 20s. I tried dating girls, but it just wasn't working out. I couldn't connect. There was always a huge wall that girls would always say that they would bump into with me. And so yeah, hiding was my safe place. The closet was my safe place for a really, really long time. And then I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and I threw myself in a lot, like the whole party scene was big for me, but it added a lot of the substance abuse. And through that time, the more I used, the more I realized that I was hiding, and I knew I was hiding, but I was reconciling those things, and didn't grow up a believer. So there was no reason why I would have any of these issues. I was just living my life.
So your family was Roman Catholic, by heritage, more than by practice.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We didn't grow up going to church. I wasn't baptized. I'm the only one of my siblings not baptized. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics in that.
Gotcha.
I was really bullied within with my siblings. I was really bullied with my dad because they could see this difference. And then in my mid 20s, again, experimenting with drugs, and realized that I was harming myself more by not being open and honest. And so I decided to come out in my mid 20s. I'm 33, almost 34 now. So it hasn't been too much time that I've actually been out, maybe about 8 years or so. 9 years actually. But it came out. And
how'd your family respond to that?
So my five brothers, again, did not. I wanted to distance myself so much, especially wanting to come out. But they actually took it really, really well. Some of the ones that really bullied me, ended up apologizing.
Wow.
I had a brother who was a believer before. He still is now, but even as a believer, and me coming out to him, there was a lot of disconnect with he and I. And I don't think he really knew what to do with the information that I was giving him. But we worked through it. And then my dad took it really, really hard because, again, the Italian machismo.
Yeah.
It was a lot of him seeing that my 5 older brothers, being engaged or married or having girlfriends or dating women was like the sign of success for him. Yeah. And bearing children and all this stuff. And him even mentioning, you're not that. I'm having these 5 perfect boys, and then there's you.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, so that was
to the heart right there.
Yeah, huge. I mean, it just affirmed all the things that I grew up thinking that he thought of me, Yeah. And so that was a challenge. I wanted to really walk away from the family at that point. And once I came out to all my friends, all in the span of 1 week. I tore, I ripped the Band-Aid off.
You said 25 when this happened?
Yeah, about 24, 25.
And you had just been hardcore closeted, nobody knew.
No one knew. Years. People would ask here and there, and guys would hit on me every once in a while, but I was just so fearful of it. Yeah. Tried to date girls again, and just it was probably heartbreaking dating me. So yeah, I started dating guys and had a few boyfriends here and there, but ultimately, like, I was really chasing the experience and ended up in the hookup culture, really, really promiscuous, if I can be really honest and,
of course,
and vulnerable. But yeah, led in a lot of promiscuity and just wanting to hook up, and every single experience just needed to get better and better, and I needed to top the next experience, and
maybe making up for lost time.
Yeah, a lot of it was just redeeming the years that I missed.
Yeah.
And so did that for a few years, and, you know, again, had boyfriends, some really, really great guys. And it was through that process, coming out and dating. I had a friend who we worked together, and then we became really close. I knew he was a Christian, but thought just Christians are really weird. Growing up, I knew...
just to let you know, sorry to interrupt you, you know, I should have said this earlier. Like,
sure.
You know, this podcast is not designed for Christians.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
really,
yeah.
I'm hoping somebody is Googling or searching on YouTube's,
all of them.
YouTubes. That sounds like such a boomer. Searching on the YouTubes. But, you know, can I be gay and a Christian? That's what the question I think I was coming in. So, like, as you are vulnerable with your story, it's a gift right now.
Thanks, man.
So thanks.
I appreciate that.
And just in case you're listening, you know, if your experience has been that Christians were weird, you know, my experience is that
confirmed
that they were weird before they met the Lord.
Yes.
He did not make them weird. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I like that. Yeah, they were weird before they met the Lord. But also my experiences of growing up of Christians were just what I saw on the news and media. Like seeing the Westboro Baptist Church and how they picket during parade marches or any type of
the signs that say
God hates fags. Those were really startling and hit really, really deep for me.
So you're thinking Christian, you're associating with that.
This is what they believe. So I don't want anything to do with Christians, and I honestly might not want to do anything with God.
Right.
If that's what God looks like.
Right.
And, you know, they're supposed to be representatives. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, even with my brother that was a believer, I really kept him at arm's length. My friend that I got to meet at work, knowing he was a Christian, he and I, like, really grew a really strong bond, like, around hip-hop music, around hip-hop dance, around being in the minority culture. And so I also grew up with a lot of mainly Latino, Filipino, and Black friends, and he was Filipino. So there was already a lot of familiarity to our friendship. And he was straight, so there was nothing, anything else going on really than just a platonic friendship. Yeah. He walked with me throughout that whole process, and then there was a time where my mom actually had a mild heart attack and ended up in heart failure, and she was in the hospital for a few weeks. And that I think was a huge wake up call to just what I was doing, the hooking up, and I think I fell into a really deep, dark depression. Cause the person that I loved so much is now in the hospital, and like, what do I do? And so I went to my friend, and he just prayed for me. He checked up on me. He was really, really sweet, really gentle, really caring.
He was Christ-like.
Yeah. Very. And so, I really trusted him with all the information that I, was carrying. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so, he actually, so as we grew closer throughout that process, I knew he had these other groups of friends that I didn't really know much of. And so he invited me and another friend to a birthday party at a friend's house. So we're like, oh, cool, house party. We're going to get drunk. We're going to, party and, maybe meet a few people. And as we're walking to the door, we're like, oh, we actually never asked how he knows these people. And he's like, oh, it's the pastor of my church.
Stop it.
And we're like, like we looked at each other and we're in such disbelief and
gosh.
fear. We're like, how could you do this to us? Like, we thought you loved us.
Oh my God.
Like, we know what the church says, like, about me and my friend who's a straight girl, but also not living for Jesus. And
Right.
we were just like,
You're like feet away from the front door.
Yeah.
Like, ding dong, by the way, this is my pastor's house.
Yeah. And he was,
Did you bring the O'Douls?
Yeah, right. So yeah, he was honest, and we were just like, shoot, this is not what we were anticipating. This is not it. And I guess this is going to be a dry party and a dry night for us.
Right.
But we need to go party afterward.
Okay.
And you're going to be our designated driver. Because
Make a deal before you go in.
Yeah. You'll be the DD, and then we'll do this for you, though. And so we go in, and honestly, people were lovely. We got to meet the pastor of the church, his wife. We got to meet a few of the other leaders at the church, and they were just really down to earth. There were drinks. No one was drinking heavily. But yeah, we just had a conversation around the fire pit and just got to know one another. They really led with a lot of just getting to know you questions, and again, just really, dare I say, uncomplicated.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really cool. And
you kind of come in with your guard up a little bit too.
Totally. Yeah.
And then they were just real. And
yeah, like jokingly, I remember saying like, okay, I'm going to be the living sacrifice. Like people are going to burn me.
That's awful.
And
but you're thinking Westboro Christian Baptist Church. So
yeah.
Have you ever been to a Christian church before?
No, never.
Okay, so makes
never.
sense.
Yeah. Had no idea what Christians. Yeah. I was not, didn't know what grace was. Nothing like that. So yeah, it seemed like a cool party. People were really sweet. And again, my friend was just really nice. And I was like, okay, like he was such a good friend throughout this whole process. I kind of want to repay him, transactional. And because he was there, I want to be there. And so decided to go to church with him on a Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah. And the very first preaching I ever walked in was this man named Danny in San Diego, and he shared about family in the kingdom of God, and how there is honesty, there's acceptance, and there's also truth in love. And again, I came from a family that was really honest with their views, but there wasn't any acceptance and there wasn't any love, and so that was really new and something I'd never heard of. And it was also the first time that I heard God as a father and unconditional loving father.
Sounds like a great sermon.
Yeah, right? It was. Yeah, he just was simple words of like, God loves you no matter where you were, no matter what you are doing, like he still loves you.
Wow.
And he talked about Grace, and this whole time I thought Grace was a little girl's name, not knowing that Grace is something you could actually accept and experience, and
that's awesome.
It was a thing. So I remember just I was a very stoic person, not showing a lot of emotion, not crying ever, and I bawled.
Wow.
I bawled that day and the week after, like just cried constantly, so much that I had like a fever. Like things were being split open in me, and I wasn't sure what was happening. Didn't think I was going to go back, but decided to go back.
Wow.
And kept going and just heard more about this word identity and finding our identity in Christ, which was not something I'd ever thought of.
Right.
And
what was your identity in at the time, you think?
Oh, shoot. I would say, a lot of it was romantic relationships.
Okay.
Right. I grew up thinking that romantic relationships were going to be the thing that would kill loneliness. It would kill just this self-hatred that I had for such a long time. I just needed to find that person.
I think romantic relationships are one of the biggest functional saviors that people look to.
Yeah, huge. In all cultures, really.
This relationship with this guy or this girl or marriage is going to save me from loneliness or a life by myself, So your identity was in...
Yeah, I would say the romantic relationships, having a boyfriend, it was in work. Like I was doing really well at a company that I worked for at the time. And I was making really good money. I had really good clients. I was being flown to different places, Vegas, and
that's easy to find your identity in that.
Oh, huge,
and what you
right?
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so finding my identity in friendships and family and money, all these things that I had never thought that I'm finding my worth in and value in was being talked about. And the pastor was saying how he struggles with these things. And that, I remember the first time my pastor shared that, he even struggles with, like, if there's a beautiful woman, of course he's going to have these temptations. I mean, he's married to his wife, and so he comes back. But when he shared that he struggles with lust, is what I like heard as at the moment, I was just like, oh shoot, he's going to lose his job. You know, 'cause I was like, I don't know much about church, but I know you don't do that in church.
Wow.
You don't share what you struggle with.
Sounds like an awesome church and a safe place.
Hugely safe. Yeah. And so, I just continued to go back because it was real and it was honest. I threw myself in a life group that we had. And again, I was dating someone at the time. I had a boyfriend.
And what's a life group for our listeners that may not know what that mechanism is?
Life group is...
Mechanism. Who calls a life group a mechanism? I'm sorry. That was the worst.
Yeah. So life group is just people coming together during midweek. And it could look different for a lot of people. It could be they're talking about the sermon on a Sunday. It could be they're looking at scriptures together, or going through a book together. But mainly it's the way the church did it was just doing life.
Friends and faith.
Friends and yeah. So just come eat, enjoy a meal with one another, get to know one another. And then let's actually talk about like where we're at in our life and what's, simple questions like what's on your mind, what's keeping you busy, what's keeping you distracted, what's filling you up. And then talking about like, okay, what is this omnipresent thing that we call as God?
Wow.
Or this taboo person that's up in the clouds. At least that was for me. But yeah, it's just a group of people. Usually,
so you're going to life group every week, meeting with these Christian friends.
Yeah.
But Paolo, are you like kind of putting your foot in the water? Like you haven't dedicated your life. Like you haven't like gotten baptized and been like all in. You're just kind of exploring, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just exploring, just going there for the fun, just going there for the meal. And I was making relationships with some of the people in there. So I knew they were cool. They were sweet. And the friend that introduced me was also there. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And just see what this is about. And yeah, again, I was really open, really honest. The only experiences I had of Christian people, how can I put this? Like I was really, really sensitive to the red flags.
Yeah.
Just really waiting
Guards
for the ball.
up.
Yeah. For the ball to drop.
I was just thinking as you're saying that how much courage it must take for anybody who's gay to go to church, period.
Oh, huge. Yeah. Yeah. 100, especially with historically speaking, what the church has done.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so it wasn't that experience. Told them I was gay, told them I was still hooking up with guys, still had a boyfriend too. And so they did pray for me, but they prayed that I'd find my identity as a son. They'd pray that I just would know who I am in the image of God. And that was, I was just like, whoa, I've never heard any of this. And especially seeing that I'm an image bearer of God, because I was holding so much of the tension of what I've done compared to what like the Christian standard should be. So I had all these mixed messages in my head about what was happening. And I kept going. I kept going because at that point I just couldn't deny that something was happening in my heart. The money that was coming in didn't feel the same. The work and my need to be a hard worker wasn't the same. The relationship that I had, excuse me. So the the boyfriend that I had, I mean, we were sexually active. And through that time, I was just kind of sharing with him, like I'm having a little bit of like a struggle with our sexual intimacy. And I don't know, like, this is really hard, but I don't know if we should keep doing that. Like, let's slow down a little bit. And he didn't take it well. And he eventually ended up breaking it off with me. And
he broke up with you as a direct result of you saying, like, I'm processing some stuff, and if we could just hold off on the physical for a minute. It took a little bit of time. Like, it took a lot of repeated conversations, a lot of also inviting him to church, and he wouldn't come. And as I was growing in, like, even money and all this other stuff, and seeing who he wasn't and how now we're being challenged in what we value was being different, I think the sex piece was probably the thing for him to be like, you know what, like, you've changed. This is all wrong, and I need to break it off. And you're not even identifying as a full-blown Christian yet.
No, 100%. No.
Man.
No. Yeah, I still had my walls up.
Dude, God loves you.
Oh, shoot.
Paolo. Shoot. He's just, like, fighting for you, huh?
Man, yeah. There's a lot that I can say just about the sexual experiences that I have had and how I've seen reconciliation in those pieces, 100%. But yeah, so broke it off with the guy, and then I was in this space where I'm like, dang, like, I'm actually seeing that Jesus is for me, and he's, like, really wanting me, and I'm like believing these things that I never thought were possible. And so I was like, okay, I think I want to commit my life to Christ. And I was, like, starting to do my homework on, like, being gay and being Christian. And so these random things, like, popped up. A lot of it, though, in the media was you cannot be gay and be a Christian. A lot of it was you need to pray the gay away, or just not identify. Like, you just don't tell anyone that you're gay. And God will fix that. I heard a lot of, like, terms like struggling with same-sex attraction. Also, same-sex attraction, the phrase same-sex attraction, I never heard of before until I was in Christian spaces. But I think hearing it for the first time and seeing, like, oh, this is kind of taboo. There's not a lot of information, not a lot of resources, and the resources that are there don't fit what I'm experiencing. And so I met with my pastor and shared with him that Jesus is moving in my heart. I just don't know where that lands me with my sexual orientation. And so he was really honest. He was really thankful that I was willing to talk to him about it. But he was just like, this is really hard to say as a straight person and as a straight pastor, but, like, this is where we stand when it comes to being gay and being a Christian, is that we do believe in a traditional biblical sexual ethic of, like, marriages between a man and a woman, and sex was made between a man and a woman. And he was really grieved. Like, I could see tears in his eyes. And he's like,
how long had you known him at that point?
5 months. 5 months.
It was a journey.
Yeah. 5 months. But I mean, I'd heard him speaking, and he was really honest and really vulnerable.
So you're having lunch with him, basically.
Yeah.
You're like, it's been 5 months.
Yeah, about. Yeah.
I think I'm ready to just.
Yeah. To put this Jesus guy, to follow this Jesus guy.
And he just has tears in his eyes, and he's like,
yeah, he's like, I really want you to consider what celibacy and singleness could look like for you.
Wow.
We don't believe that God, we don't pray for orientation change, that you would be straight. That's not the hope. The hope is that you would be a follower, and that you'd let the Holy Spirit work in you. And
so he said to pray for what now?
Just pray that God would just work in my heart of, like, celibacy and singleness. Like,
celibacy
and singleness. Yeah, like, just consider it.
When you heard the word celibacy,
I didn't even know what that meant.
That's not a word that people use a lot, to be honest. I mean,
no.
I can't think of any time I ever hear that word other than in a Christian circle.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does the word celibacy mean?
Celibacy is someone that is choosing or living in a way that they're just not. They're not having sex. So they're abstaining from sexual. They're abstaining from sexual contact or any sexual experiences. So celibacy is,
which is if I'm thinking of somebody who's not a Christian, who's been told their whole life that their sexuality is, to say no to that or to go celibate, that's like a death in a way, right?
It feels like especially the word singleness.
Yeah.
Like that often feels like a death sentence to anyone.
It's true.
It's
true.
Because our
culture has made marriage like the prize.
Yeah.
The Bible doesn't make marriage the prize.
No, it doesn't.
But Jesus himself was like, some of you should consider being single.
Yeah.
Jesus said that.
Yeah.
Paul says that too, like some of you should consider, for some people he says singleness is a gift. He even goes so far to say that.
Yeah.
But we grew up in a world where that's the goal, especially like the American dream. It's like
huge.
Get married and then you've achieved something, you have the kids, you have the house. Like that's success, right?
Yeah,
and for a man to hear from his pastor, I want you to pray about celibacy.
Yeah.
And choosing singleness on purpose.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I, on all honesty, I hated him.
Yeah.
I hated them. I hated him after that conversation. I was just like, you have the wrong person. Number one, I feel like I'm a good person. I deserve a spouse. I deserve the kids and I should have whatever I want. And then obviously just looking at my history of, being in the closet for such a long time and now living openly and having my sexual experiences and having boyfriends, that were amazing. And then coming to know Jesus and wanting to know more about Jesus and then being told, well, like, let's really consider celibacy and singleness. Like it felt like, again, like identity.
Yeah. Because in your mind, I'm guessing, you're imagining a future with a spouse.
Totally.
You're thinking, I'm going to meet the man of my dreams.
Christian guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're aiming for monogamy. It's not like you're looking just being hooking up the rest of your life. You were looking for, just like a single straight man would be looking for a spouse.
Totally.
So you would marry, Christian guy, have the family.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well.
Yeah. Well, what we all want, what we all naturally desire is to have someone.
Companionship.
Yeah, companionship, to not be alone.
Intimacy.
Yeah, totally. So it's natural to want those things.
But when that is your optimal future in your mind, when you're thinking, this is my target, right? You're like, that's a level of faith that
totally.
How many people choose that, choose Jesus over a future like that? That's just remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And so, I walked away from that conversation just really upset and just really, I think what was beautiful though, is that my pastor continued to walk with me. He wasn't just, hey, this is it, and then you go figure it out on your own. He helped me gather resources. He also really helped me look at scripture. And so I think after that conversation, I was like, okay, I still know that I want Jesus because nothing else tastes the same.
Okay.
And I still want to put my life in Jesus. And if God really says who he is, I kind of want to give him I want to see if he's worth it. If he's
why not go
worthy.
the affirming route? Why not go try to find, some translation of some word? I mean, there's a whole camp of Christians that would just take you in and say, this translation is wrong and this biblical word means this. And we've outgrown that archaic thinking, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, how did you process all that? It couldn't have happened overnight.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. So I gave God a year to really prove himself worthy
of
my singleness and celibacy. I don't know if you guys have ever done that out there, like give God a year to show himself worthy. It's a good test.
I did it, not on your level, but I said, fine, I'll go to Bible college for 1 year.
Yeah, see what you do.
But I said, I won't be any friends with any Christians. That's why I told us, I'll go 1 year, I'll go to my classes, I'll follow you. But you really gave him a 1 year, like a 12-month.
Yeah.
What were the conditions?
Yeah, I was like, okay, I won't look at a boy. I won't talk to a guy. I just really want you to use this time, like speak to me one-on-one, and let me continue to be in the community, and I'll be really honest. And again, I wish I could say that like after being saved and being baptized, that like it was like, you know, walking through clouds and picking up poppies and all this stuff. It was rough. I spent tons of sleepless nights.
It got harder.
Got real hard. Yeah. A lot of spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
So just a lot of tears, a lot of anger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really hard. And throughout that process, it was about 9 months after where still dealing with a lot of this ache, knowing like, okay, I have a few more months. I was at a Christian wedding, and it was at the end of the night, and I decided not to drink because I wanted to be sober. You know, I wanted to be available and all that stuff. But it was towards the end of the night where I decided to take a walk, and I went to where the ceremony was held, where the altar is. You know, you walk down the aisle and all the chairs. And I'm just there and looking around, and all the chairs are empty. The family that I would love to be there isn't there. The friends that I would love to be there isn't there. The man wasn't there. The ring that I desperately wanted wasn't there. The commitment that I was willing to take wasn't there. And I remember just crying out. Like it was one of those moments where I had wrestled with God for such a long time, and such a deep wrestle. Like I got down to the ground with him and wrestled deeply with him. And it was just a moment of like just calling out and just being like, what the heck? Like, what is this all for? Like, why? And just, I remember like, feel like audibly hearing God say, like, as I was saying, like, God, I want the ring, and feeling like I could audibly hear him say, like, the ring that you desire, I gave to you in my blood. And yeah. And I was just like continuing to just allow that to sink in. And then I was just like, well, why do I have to be gay? Like, why this? And just feeling like he was really saying like, what makes you think this is for you? Like that my sexual orientation was just for me.
I have chills just hearing you say that story right now.
Man, it like is one of those things that is always in the back of my mind. That was like 5 years ago. So I gave my life to Christ about 6 years ago, almost 6 years. And then that was the day that I vowed to singleness and celibacy. And I remember those words like vividly. That was my experience of like God and how he was showing himself to me, and what he was wanting to commit to for me with his own body, you know.
What do you think that means to the listener? You hear audible or borderline audible, like this really strong communication or revelation from God that's undeniable. And he says, the ring that you are looking for, what was that again?
I gave to you in my blood.
I gave to you in my blood. What does that mean?
I think for me it means the significance that I had placed on the ring being on my finger was life or death. But actually, like, Jesus experienced life and death and brings us into life. And so here I was putting such significance into this this partner, this marriage, which I think we all do. Anyone who's also married can say, if they're honest, that they put a lot of identity into spouse and who they are in as a spouse. And so I think for me, it was really Jesus wanting to show me what he, knowing who I am, was willing to commit to, like in all my all my sinfulness, all my ugliness. Like he would be willing to die for my sake.
Till death do us part.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what vows would be said at that altar with the ring.
Yeah. Yeah. Till death do us part. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And just, wrecked me, like cried uncontrollably, like had no idea what was happening, but I knew that I wanted to commit to that.
So you're sensing this, just a closeness with God at that moment.
Yeah.
His vow to you as much as your vow to him. And then he says, what makes you think this is just for you?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah. I think
I have an idea for me, but what did that mean to you in that moment?
I think because I was the only, for a long time at the church, I was the only gay person who was really navigating, or at least openly gay person who was navigating faith. So I think I just kept on, I would say maybe my selfishness, like everything is about me. Like God needs to do things in me. This is about me. My sexuality is about me. And I think just knowing how the gospel really levels the playing field, and that the gospel is for all people, and the gospel was meant to be shared. Like, me being a representation of being gay and being a believer wasn't just for me. That he was calling me to a bigger purpose. At the time, I had no idea what that meant. Because again, I had just a really low view, or a really boxed in view of what God was doing in my life. So when he said, like, what makes you think this is for you, or asked that, I was just like, oh shoot, like do you have anything more than just singleness? Like you actually have stuff? Because singleness, I always just think of like me in a shack, like, kind of somewhere in an RV, alone and desolate. And and so
yet Jesus, the most influential person who's ever hit the planet, was single.
And look at what he's done.
Who's given more love?
Yeah.
Who's changed more lives?
Oh, huge,
than single. Jesus.
Yeah.
So you have that moment at a wedding.
Yeah.
In the scriptures, the illustration is that Jesus is the groom, and the church, those of us that have been saved by him, that have chosen him back, are his bride, right? And that's an illustration from the Old Testament all the way through the New Testament. In fact, technically, honeymoon is heaven, really, in many ways. And so, you must have a new future in mind. Yeah. Right?
Totally.
You traded in your old future that you thought was with another man and with the family and the kids that was here on earth. So there's got to be a hope now, because we have to have hope. The gospel is good news. Yeah. Not just about what Christ has done for us, but the things that where he is welcoming us into the future as well. Yeah. So what is your hope now?
Yeah. So I think since then, again, I would love to say that it was butterflies and daisies, but it wasn't. It the interesting thing about making commitments is like things will come up in your life, and I feel like men came out of the woodworks and were suddenly re-interested in my life, which was hard. But I think I've been able to really share in different platforms for the past 5 years. Preston Sprinkle, I've shared at a few of his conferences. I've preached at different churches. I've shared my story at different events, and have really experienced more than just the thing about like me being a gay guy who had a lot of sex and then hasn't. It's been I think the story that's really been told is like I was a hidden person, and like God has really restored a lot of those things in me to make me more vulnerable and honest. And that has inspired a lot more people in their own lives, whether straight or gay, to walk in the same way. I think one of the craziest things that I always experience when speaking at conferences is I have people who will come up to me and share, I had a cousin that was gay, or I had an uncle that was gay, or I had a friend in middle school that was gay. And more often than not, it's always been that they know someone that has taken their life because they're gay and because they were not accepted. Mm-hmm. So over anything that I share, it's I hope that the most important thing is that God is yearning to accept all his children, that he wants his children. And I think my hope is that like my life really does show that, and that there's purpose behind. I know that I'm walking in suffering. Like to say no to a husband every day is really, really difficult. Even saying no to sex is really difficult. I am deliberately walking in the way of suffering the way Christ did. Yeah. You know, Christ had a mission, and his main mission was to get to the cross. And so I think I could say, okay, I could live with a gay affirming theology, but I think looking at Jesus and how he suffered, though our life as Christians isn't just about suffering, but it is walking in Christ's suffering as he suffered for us, that we get to walk in it. And I don't say that plainly. Obviously, I've done a lot of work. I have a really good therapist who has walked me through a lot of stuff. And I have a really good community that has walked me through a lot too.
I saw that community that day that you said goodbye. And, it's interesting talking to your pastor, talking about, because you're talking about how God doesn't waste pain. Yeah. And you've shared with me the pain of loneliness. Yeah. But even you can be lonely no matter what your arrangement is in life. I mean, there's a lot of lonely married people out there. I mean, it's devastatingly lonely to be sleeping in the same bed with somebody that you don't know, or who refuses to be intimate, or refuses to let you in. And there's just this daily rejection that's possible. And it's not the same loneliness as somebody in the lifestyle that you've chosen now. But he told me on different occasions that you've been such a ally and in the church with marriages, like being able to just come alongside marriages and other people that it's like, hey, I'm not gonna I've gone through the loneliness thing, and I'm here to tell you that there's something on the other side there. There's more of God. And I know that we can accidentally look at the life that we live right now, Paolo, as like the end of it, like this is the end of life, but the truth is that me and you are going to know each other for eternity. Yeah. And there's more beyond this. And even like what you said about Jesus heading toward the cross, there was more beyond the cross. Totally. That was his earthly, journey there. But, this idea of the pursuit of happiness and happiness being the goal. I mean, shoot, like, look at any Instagram influencer's profile bio. It's about being happy and spreading happiness. Totally. Would you be able to say, though, that in a lifestyle where you're choosing suffering because you're denying yourself, you're choosing celibacy, you're choosing singleness, are you able to say with I wouldn't expect anything less than integrity, but just say, like, are you happy? Do you have joy?
Yeah, I think I do experience joy. I think happy as in, gosh, even just in my queerness and how I experience being a gay man in this world, I would say, happiness has come from the comfort that I just feel of who I am and who I was also made to be. It doesn't come without its challenges. It doesn't come without just grief that happens in life. But I will say that, like, I think this past year alone, I think Jesus has really reshaped how I view happiness. I think a lot of it just came from probably a superficial happinite. Like, I just need to, if I have these things that just keep me happy, or
happenstance.
Yeah, totally. But I think Jesus has really shown me, like, what choosing his joy looks like. And I think it's a part of the purpose that I hope to walk in my obedience, not just with sex and sexuality, but in all areas of my life. Like,
and he's brought other gay brothers in your life. That
totally. Yeah.
Their orientation may naturally be to be attracted to other men, but they're making the same hard choices you are.
Yeah.
And you've found a brotherhood in those guys, right?
Yeah.
Which probably helps with the loneliness, I imagine, brings a strength and a support and a church, around you.
Yeah. So I've spoken at a lot of conferences, have met a lot of people who are identifying as gay or same-sex attracted or whatever it is on the LGBTQ line. And it was always hard because I would find out they were gay later on, and then I'd find out that they're not open, or there was some like weird awkwardness to their interaction with me. But yeah, I had a friend, I met someone in early 2020 when I spoke at a Preston Sprinkle conference who came up to me and was just like, hey, I'm also gay, I'm also celibate, and I'm an executive pastor at this church. Can we be friends?
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, shoot, someone who's really honest.
Did you just say a gay pastor?
Yeah. And celibate? Yeah. I'm just like, say those words again.
And I know that church. That's a conservative church. That's a Bible teaching church.
Yeah.
That would make room in their community to say, hey, this man may be, his default may be attracted to other men, but he's choosing something that takes more faith than 99% of the rest of us.
Yeah. And him having his own journey with sexual orientation and openness. And so, we exchanged contact info, and then obviously pandemic, but we kept in contact a lot throughout that process. And there's this, in Nashville, there's something called the Nashville Family of Brothers. Peter Volk kind of dreamt it up. He also leads the organization called Equip, which does a lot for churches in creating a blueprint on the conversation of sexuality.
I actually visited that website recently. What is the domain? Do you know?
I don't know. You could find them on Instagram.
You Google your name, it comes up.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. So Equip, you could look them up. They have a lot of, they have a lot of information, really helpful stuff. But so Peter Volk created this thing called the Nashville Family of Brothers, where there's men who either identify as gay or queer or bi or unsure, where they're either vowed to singleness or celibacy or wanted to see what commitment in a brotherhood looks like, live in a house. And there's a period of discernment of, is God calling them to this? Do they enjoy each other? Can they do this together? And so Greg and I were really inspired by that. Greg initially was really inspired by that, and he and I talked about it a lot. And so I've always been really slow to process things. I need to take baby steps.
Yeah.
And so it was in end of 2020, early 2021, early January, where I was just like, let's live together. Let's see if God is calling us to do Family of Brothers. Let's discern this. But really practically, let's see if we actually like each other. Yeah. Let's see if we can do this together.
Roommates is not, it just doesn't matter your sexual orientation. Some people are just not good roommates.
Totally. Yeah. Greg is a huge people person. He loves making anyone comfortable and please use their space. And I'm just like, okay, well, let's talk about the cleanliness of the space, So both things are good. It's just a lot of times we've had to learn how to communicate, which has been a huge blessing for me.
But what I'm hearing from you, both what's kind of being pioneered in San Diego, what you're learning from Nashville, is that you're not on your own out there.
No.
I mean, if you are gay and you're trying to follow Jesus and you're trying to live at a traditional ethic. Regarding sexuality. That is a journey that by yourself, I could imagine would be torturous. You need some people around you. The same advice that we give to anybody, don't do life alone. You can get through just about anything if you have the right people around you, whether you're gay or straight or however you identify. You doing things on your own is going to be tough. And so, man, what would you say? Let me close with a couple of questions. One, to all my friends and family who are gay that feel like the only way to live is to find a church that affirms their choice for, you know, that the Bible does indeed endorse gay marriage, or what that seems to be that's the narrative. It's like you either find a church like that or you don't belong.
Yeah.
So what do you tell somebody who's stumbled onto this YouTube video or this podcast and they're like, man, I can't deny that this is like how I've always been, and yet I also can't deny that I would do anything for Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, I think firstly, you know, I do have friends that are affirming in their marriage theology. And I think the thing that we always agree on when searching for a church, being a gay person, is what is their biblical theology? Like, are they Bible-based? Are they talking about conviction? Are they talking about the gospel? Are they talking about what it looks like to actually follow Jesus in suffering? And that being a Christian doesn't just mean you get a ticket to heaven. It means like you actually get to live out in a way that's pleasing to Jesus. And
my heart belongs to God. My time belongs to God. My money belongs to God. My sexuality belongs to God.
Yeah.
My body belongs to God.
A true, like integrity, like who you are inside the home is who you are outside of the home. And in all the ways of life. So I would tell that person to do your homework, really get to know the people who are there.
Does it in any way, is it hard for you when Christians who are gay are contending like, no, the Bible actually does endorse this, and it is okay to be to pursue a monogamous covenant relationship with the same sex, and they're kind of contending like everybody else has gotten it wrong for all these thousands of years. Yeah. Do you find it hard? I would imagine that's gotta be hard for you when you're choosing the exact opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard. It is hard because I want to believe those things. Sure. I deeply, deeply want to believe that God would bless a same-sex marriage for me. Number one, I have to go back to like what I actually heard and what I experienced with God.
Yeah, that moment of grace is pretty significant.
Yeah, that is my like reminder of who I am and who I'm called to be. And then second, I think I would say, can you repeat the question actually?
I was just trying to put myself in your shoes, just thinking about how you're over here clearly saying, I know I'm choosing the harder path. Yeah. But there's some people who would say, hey, you don't have to choose that path and you can still be a Christian.
Yeah. I think the way I'm living, which is celibate single life, is the most is the life that mimics most of Jesus. Right. And which we're all called to. We're all called to mimic the life of Jesus, whether you're straight or gay or however you identify. And we're called to walk in the way of suffering, not in the way of comfort, and you get what you want and privilege. So that's for all Christians. So I think I am actively walking in suffering. Like I know that really, really well. And it's not, I can't say it's easy in any way.
I was having lunch with a gay friend recently who was married, and this gay friend was there with their spouse, and they looked at me and they said, well, what would you have me do? Be single the rest of my life? And like, with tears in my eyes, I was like, that's what Jesus did. Yeah. And as a follower of Jesus, as a leader, I don't want to hold anybody to a standard other than what they've committed to. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, I'm not going to judge somebody who's not a Christian for not obeying my father. Totally. They don't live in my father's house. That's not their father. Yeah. Right? Once we become Christians and we're brothers, there becomes an opportunity with the right, if it's a two-way street, the right conversations where it's like, I've had people tell me when I first came to Christ, like, Justice, like, let's live by a higher standard, and I was like, whoa, you're right. I should live by a higher standard, but those conversations, especially regarding sexuality or orientation, I mean, that's a personal conversation. Like I can look at a man and a woman who are living together, right, Paolo? And I can be like, hey, if I'm going to do your pre-marriage counseling and I'm going to officiate your wedding, show me that God's really first in this relationship and don't sleep with each other. Show me that you can do that. It would be stronger for you guys to not sleep with each other and then repent of sexual sin and then get married rather than live together. That's not God's way. If I were to say that the wrong way to my gay friends, they wouldn't hear stop having sex. They would hear
stop being you.
Stop being you.
Yeah.
For the person that's tuning in right now and they're like, I'm looking for a hope, you know, and maybe they identify with your story a little bit. Yeah. What would you say? You can even look at this camera right here like you're talking to them.
I would say, number one, please do the work. Really look at Scripture. Really allow it to speak to your heart. There are a ton of resources out there that I would love, if Justice allows it, I would love to just put out there for you guys. Yeah. Books and other videos that I highly encourage. But also, like, what is the gospel calling you to? Like, if Jesus truly died for you, he gave his whole life, his whole well-being, and he stood on the cross for you, for your freedom. Like, what does walking in freedom look like for you? And how is he calling you out of that?
Dude, you my friend, that's such a blessing in my life. Thanks, man. And anybody who's tuning in, and the description on YouTube, I don't know how we'll do it on Spotify or whatever, we'll put these resources. Hey, you're loved. God loves you. Yeah. He knew you were going to watch this video. He knew you were going to meet Paolo, and just where you are, he wants to meet you. And my prayer is that he speaks to you, not just through the scriptures, but personally, the way that Paolo describes that significant, monumental day where you were actually able to say, okay, I give you my life. You're the man.
Thanks,
I love
man.
you.